So positive externalities are situations in which the production and or consumption of the good generates benefits that accrue to people that are external to the market. So not the person deciding whether or not to consume the good, not the person deciding whether or not to produce the good, but somebody entirely outside the market benefits from that. Like a vaccine, right? You get vaccinated if the benefit is greater than the cost to you, but you getting vaccinated benefits me also, right? The more people that get vaccinated, the better off we all are, because it increases the level of immunity of the population as a whole. And so we're all better off. And particularly people who can't get vaccinated for whatever reason, they very much benefit from the rest of us getting vaccinated. And so that's an external benefit to them. Or maybe education. Think about education. We all benefit from having a citizenry that knows how to read and do basic math and understand basic civics and things like that. So there is certainly a huge external benefit to everyone of your child being educated, or you being educated when you were a child. We're all better off with everybody in the country having those basic literacy skills and numeracy skills. Higher education, it's not as much or as obvious, because if you're becoming more productive because of what you learn in college and you're getting paid for it, that's not an externality, right? You're a civil engineer and you learn how to build a bridge and you get paid for building a bridge or designing a bridge. That's a market transaction, right? So becoming more productive in a way that you get compensated for, that's not an externality. Society benefits from having people that learn how to be doctors and people that learn how to do all the things, but to the extent that you get paid for it, that's a market. That's not an externality. But if you develop critical thinking skills that make you a better citizen, or you decide to run for office based on, or you develop leadership skills that make you very productive in your children's parent-teacher association and your homeowners association, or just as a member of the community, those sorts of benefits that accrue to people because you have developed these skills and are using them to benefit others and not getting paid for them. Those would be external benefits to the skills you learn in college. So not everything that you develop in college is externalities, because if you're more productive and you get paid for it, that's internal. But there are certainly some other externalities to higher education, but not as much and not as obvious as the externalities. Huge positive externalities to elementary education. We're all better off having all kids know how to read and write and do basic math. So the situation with externalities is that if you leave the market alone, people look at their private benefit, they look at their private costs, and they consume here, and that would be efficient in a normal market, right? Because all the units that are worth more than they cost to make are being made and consumed. In the presence of positive externalities, the problem is that there are these external benefits, marginal benefit, external, marginal benefit, external, that the market's not taking into account. You make your decision on whether to send your child to school because of what's good for your child, but you don't say, I want to send my child to school so society as a whole will have more educated citizenry. Well, maybe you do, but most people don't, right? And so the true social marginal benefit of a good with a positive externality is equal to the private marginal benefit. Oops, I should say marginal benefit. The private marginal benefit plus the external benefit. You leave the market alone, it will generate and produce and consume Q-star units of the good, because the people in the market are just looking at their own benefits and their own costs. If you take into account the added benefit to society of everybody getting educated or everybody getting vaccinated or whatever else, things like urban renewal have positive externalities. If you buy an old house in a dilapidated part of town and you fix it up, everybody in the neighborhood benefits, right? Everybody in the neighborhood, small scale positive externality benefits when you have nice flowers in your yard or put up Christmas lights. So you may do things because they're increasing the value of your property, you fix up your property, but everybody around you benefits from you fixing up your property. That's another sort of situation where there are these external benefits. You make your decision, but a lot of people benefit. And so the actual socially efficient level in that market is actually higher. In the presence of positive externalities imply that the socially efficient level of output is greater than the level of output we would get in the free market equilibrium. If you leave the market alone, it doesn't produce enough. And ignoring the graph if it's confusing, you just stop and think. What's happening here is that the market is producing and consuming something, and that production and consumption benefits people that have no say in how much gets produced or consumed. But they're benefiting. So when the market's left to its own devices, it doesn't take into account those benefits. So the free market output, the equilibrium when the market's allowed to operate freely with no intervention, isn't taking into account some of the benefits it's generating. So it's not producing enough. These units from Q star private to Q socially efficient are worth less than they cost to make to the people consuming in the market. But when you take into account the value to society, right, when you take into account that external benefit, those units are worth more than the cost to make, at least out to QSE. So the socially efficient level of output would be higher. And so that's the problem. A market left to its own, if it's generating positive externalities, the market left to its own devices is not going to produce enough. It's going to produce less than the socially efficient level of output. So what can the government do? Anything that encourages production and consumption of this good with negative externalities. So subsidies, right? You could make education cheaper, so make it less costly, or which we do with primary education, right? It's free. The government provides it free because we really want people to go. We may say, oh, you might think it's too costly to send your kid. We're making it free. So we want you to go, or free COVID vaccines, or significant reduced and subsidized or free vaccines for seasonal flu and things like that, or childhood vaccines, because it's good for everybody. Or sometimes the government will subsidize purchases of housing in sort of opportunity zones that they want to improve, and say, we'll subsidize your purchase, give you a subsidized loan, or sometimes if the government owns the housing because it's been abandoned, sell it to you for very cheap if you fix it up, because that's going to benefit everybody. So lowering the cost through a subsidy is like a reverse tax. You're paying somebody to do something. So encouraging anything that encourages more, or like we talked about, if you watch the negative externality video, these are sort of the same things, except encouraging instead of discouraging, right? We had taxes on goods with negative externalities. Well, also regulation, we said you're not allowed to pollute, or you're not allowed to smoke indoors with negative externalities. Regulation, we can do it for positive externalities too. We can say your child must go to school, or you must get vaccinated, or you must keep your lawn from dying, right? The city of Stockton drives around and tells people, sends them little letters saying your lawn's dead. I've never gotten one, but I know people who have, because that they're saying a nicely kept lawn benefits everybody, and so if you're not going to generate this positive externality, we're going to tell you have to. So we either make it cheaper to encourage you to do it, or we tell you have to do it, or we encourage you to do it. We use moral suasion. We say it's good for you, right? Stay in school. You see advertisements, celebrity figures saying stay in school, do this. You see important figures during the COVID, getting the vaccines being rolled out, and everyone's going on camera saying, look, I got the vaccine, President Biden got the vaccine, other celebrities, inappropriate tears, of course, got the vaccine, to sort of say, look, this is the right thing to do, you should do it. you should stay in school, you should do this, you should. And so it, even short of saying you must do it or giving you cost benefits, or like with primary education, we do all of these things, right? We make it a law, we subsidize it, and we say it's really the right thing to do. So these aren't, you can use all of these or one of these, but the fundamental point is, if production and consumption of the good generates benefits to people that aren't part of the market, you leave the market alone, it's not going to produce enough. And so the government can get involved and encourage production and consumption of that good to move us closer to the socially efficient level, to get those units that people left to their own devices might not produce and consume, but are worth it to society, to get that increase in production and consumption.